motorcycling and wrote a glorious chapter in Indian history. So in our class of walk, we will be covering those places which would be closely associated with 1857, and in fact, those places could be the ones which you might have seen but not noticed. If noticed, then perhaps not observed, and if observed, then maybe we didn't know about them, or maybe the places which could be entirely new to us. So shall we begin? Yeah? The revolt had sparked up in Meerut. Meerut is about 58 kilometers from Delhi, and the moment it sparked, it soon embraces different regions, especially of northern India, and Indian soldiers from these regions are rushing towards the city of Delhi. Now, if this is the city of Delhi, the rebels are coming, they are attacking it, and the British, who had been staying here since 1803, are now completely perplexed. They are confused by the sudden attack. So they are leaving the city, they are escaping the city, and they are rushing towards the ridge area of the Delhi. Ridge area or the hilly regions of Delhi. And by this time, the rebels have taken up the city. And when I say city, it is the old Delhi which we know today. Or it was known as Shahjahanabad that time. So now the rebels are inside the city. The British have taken a refuge on the ridge area. And psychologically, let's understand the situation which could have been there at that time. The rebels are trying to consolidate their hold on the city, whereas the British are trying to regain the city. So a fierce battle had been fought somewhere between this region. And perhaps the ground where we are standing today is that battleground. And it has hidden away various Indian and as well as British faces. This burial ground has one such face in front of us, and that is of Brigadier General John Nicholson. So he is Brigadier General John Nicholson, one of the most prominent military leaders from the British side, and he was extremely brave and known for his fair-handedness, and he was extremely respected among his army men, especially the Indian army men and Afghanis army men. And it is said that he was so respected that a cult had developed in his name called Nikhil Singh. And it is said that when he died during recapturing of the city, the army men had come and wept bitterly on his grave. There were few who took up flowers from his grave and gave up fighting forever. And there were furthermore who left fighting forever and got baptized in his name. So this was the power and influence of Brigadier General. Not to forget, he was also a very brutal, atrocious and racist in character. So this was about Nicholson, and there is one more person waiting for us, perhaps right behind the bush. So we'll have to walk and scrape this grass. Okay. Yashodas Ramachandra, an Indian face, and he was a prominent professor of Delhi College. Now Delhi College could be called as the descendant of the modern Zakir Hussain College. Now Zakir Hussain College is a well-known college of Delhi University today. So this Delhi College during 1857, not during but it was around 1857 that it had gained immense popularity, and that too because of its large-scale translation work in Urdu. And Professor Ramachandra had also become equally important because he was also engaged in this translation process and this translation of work intensively. Although he was a mathematician, but he was translating texts of mathematics, of science, of history, even of horticulture into Urdu. But this 1857 changed the story, both for this Delhi College and also for our Professor Ramachandra. Now when the Indian soldiers were inside, they were trying and threatening each and possible stuff associated with British power. And Ramachandra had converted into Christianity. He was a Hindu, but he had adopted Christianity. So he was a traitor in the eyes of rebels, and he was also a black in the eyes of British. So also he had to face hostility from both the sides. And as far as the college building is considered, it was also shattered. And the reason being because the rebels or Indian soldiers had seen it closely associated with British, with conversions into Christianity, with science and modernity. A wall that had 14 gates to enter and exit. And one such gate, one of the loftiest gates, is Kashmiri Gate. And yeah, this is Kashmiri Gate. And it got its name because the road through it eventually led to Kashmir. And it was one of the most important landmarks in Mutiny as well. Because once the Indian sepoys were inside the city, they were using this ground for assembling, for developing strategies, for attacking the enemies, and for discussions, and for various other stuff regarding the revolt. And on 14th September, it again comes into significance when the British force hung this gate up to the cannon balls in order to try and recapture the city. So we are inside the city, and this is the whole city, suppose. So the rebels are coming, the British are coming from the other side, and still the damage made by the cannonballs, the British cannonball, is still visible on the other side of the gate. So if you move, you'll be able to see that. Not really that. It had a strategic path hidden behind it, and this could have been very important from the point of view of military, whoever was holding the city. And this could have been a path for the military troops to move to the other gate, because these walls were connected with different gates. So as I said, 14 gates, they were connected with the walls. And this encroachment is of course a new one, so this path might have gone a far way ahead and might have joined Mori Gate. And so it's just to give a sense that how the minds of that time would have been working for the defense of themselves, and also for securing themselves against any risky moment that might erupt at any time. And this place has been made up many times, and it is visible as well. The stones and the concrete. So the stones here, the bricks there and the bricks here are quite different from each other. And when the British were here, they also worked on it. It's not only the Mughals or Shah Jahan who was building up these places, but the British also, once they were inside the city, that is around 1800, in the beginning of 1800, they were making and strengthening the structure. So the idea could be of Mughal, but the way it has been strengthened could be from the British side.
What are the 14 gates?
14 gates are many, but now only 4 are existing. 4 are Ajmeri Gate, one is Delhi Gate, one is this Kashmiri Gate, and the other is Durwan.
And Mori Gate?
Mori Gate is no more existing. It's only terminal.
Lahori Gate also.
Lahori Gate was busted up during the revolt time. been used by the rebels to defend the British coming from that side. And the structures which we see today may not be the original ones because many of it was destroyed because of the heavy cannonballs and because of the force, the British force. And we can even see that some of it like missing from here and some of it has been tried to be made up. Bricks again are quite different. So we really have to imagine and go back to that time to bring it alive, the situation alive. And the projections which you see that side, they are bastions. And these were set up by the British. As I said that the British were trying in strengthening the wall. So this was not only bastions but also there were projections. There were various efforts, other efforts also made by the British to strengthen it. And the strategic use of this bastion is angles. So suppose this is a bastion. The two soldiers, if they are standing at the two ends, then they would be covering different angles, and from between they will be saved by the projection. So in a way they will be covering, in a way they will be safer also, and they will be covering a wider range to attack enemies as well. That 1911 was the time when British shifted their capital from Calcutta to New Delhi, and during this process, large number of members of Bengali community had also migrated to the city. So for the promotion of their culture, language, tradition, they had set up a club called Bengali Club. That's it. And originally it was near Jama Masjid, but around 1925 it got established here. So it was a hub for the Bengali community, and music, dance, theatre was its main attraction. However, now it is only standing in ruins, and it's very hard to find people going there. This place is supposed to have been houses. It is supposed to have had houses and mansions and estates and gardens of Mughal nobility, especially of Dara Shikoh, who was the eldest son of Shah Jahan, and also Ali Mardan Khan, who was an important Mughal noble. And this place and this land has been sold to various hands. Finally, when it reached to Lala Sultan Singh, who is known to have built this market. And even today, the remains of the old buildings, old architecture is visible. And the mosque or the structure in front of us is Fakr-ul Masajid Mosque, that is pride of mosques. It was built by Khanize Fatima in the memory of her deceased husband, who was under Aurangzeb as commander-in-chief, and that too in Agra. It is called Lal Masjid also because of the red sandstone that is being used here. Right in front of us is one of the old buildings of Hindu College, which is one of the most popular colleges of Delhi University today, and we will be discussing about it once we move to St. Stephen College. Come on. College. St. Stephen's College, one of the best colleges of Delhi University today. This was built up by the British missionaries in order to spread English, Western education. And right behind this old Hindu college building, it was because it was built up by the Indian merchants who wanted to oppose this idea of English Western education. So even today, these colleges are almost opposite to each other in Delhi University campus, and the tussle and the competition is still going on. This is right side chief electoral office building, and that is MCD under the Municipal Corporation of Delhi. Both are government building and both are active as well. It had various gardens, various lands and mansions reserved for Mughal nobility. And when the British occupied the city in 1803, they modified the buildings according to their own taste and desires and interests. And one such British resident was David Ogden. He had built up a market here called Nasirabad. Then after his death, the British made there was a British cantonment here. And finally, it was sold off to Skinner, James Skinner, who has built this church, St. James Church. And this is one of the oldest. Rather, it is the first church of the city.
That's right.
And James Skinner was an interesting person. He had a mixed blood orientation because of his Scottish father and Rajput mother. And because of this mixed blood, he could not find a fixed place in the British army. So he had his own military band, and whoever paid him more, he used to fight for them. And interestingly, his regiment's name, that is the Skinner's Horse, it is still existing in the Indian army. And he was not only excellent in military skills, but he was also well versed with Persian culture, Persian language, and he used to write memoirs of his military expeditions in the Persian language. We can't meet Skinner because he's there inside the church, buried under the communion table. But of course, we can meet his family members and also his friends. Of James Skinner, and he is William Fraser. He was a British resident around the 1830s in Delhi, and in a very short while we'll be moving to his bungalow as well. But before we do that, let's understand the situation, or let's understand the significance of this church during the revolt. So as I said, that all the British symbols or the British symbols of power were threatened by the Indian soldiers, Indian sepoys, and so this was also threatened by them. The movables, the furniture, the glass slabs were just stolen away, some were broken, and a field hospital and a canteen was established inside the church to facilitate the needs of the revolt. And even the copper cross and the ball which we see today is the one which had been replaced, which had to be replaced, as the original one was destroyed or damaged by Indian soldiers who were using it for their target practice. So this was about the church and about James Skinner and his family and friends. And now we'll be moving to his bungalow. library, and the passage we are taking is the university campus. This itself is a sort of a historic place, because whenever a new university comes up, it establishes itself here. Then when it gets its own building, it leaves the place so that a new university can come up. So this place is shared by various universities and has been shared in the past as well. Even IIT Delhi was once here, now it is in Hauz Khas. Delhi College of Engineering is in Bhawana now, it was also here. Then there's a Guru Gobind Indraprasth University. It is now in Dwarka Sector 16. And now it is recently shared by two universities, that is Ambedkar University Delhi, that is AUD, and IGIT, Indira Gandhi Institute of Technology. It was a library of Dara Shikoh, who was the eldest son of Shah Jahan, and also it was residence of Ali Mardan Khan, who was again an important noble of Mughal court, in the Mughal court. Now Dara Shikoh was the favorite son of Shah Jahan, and when Shah Jahan was alive, he had declared him to be his rightful successor. But the conquest of throne between him and Aurangzeb was quite brutal, and in which Aurangzeb, the younger brother of Dara Shikoh and the younger son of Shah Jahan, defeated Dara Shikoh, and Aurangzeb then became the emperor of Delhi, and Dara Shikoh was executed after some time. And Ali Mardan Khan, who is known to have stayed here and who is also credited for his works and for his canal work in Chandni Chowk, or whose tunnel we had been discussing about in the Northern Railway's office, was an important Mughal noble, as I had been repeatedly saying. But he was under Safavid dynasty earlier, and Safavid dynasty was the dynasty which was ruling modern Turkey, Iraq, Iran, some parts of Afghanistan. And when Ali Mardan Khan, he was given a province, Kandahar province, and when he surrenders it to Shah Jahan, he comes to the Mughal court. And once he comes to the Mughal court, he is awarded with titles like Lord of the Lords. He was heading troops of about 7,000 army men. And if you go to Lahore, you will find his tomb. And there is a beautiful garden in Kashmir, Bagh-e Ali Mardan Khan, in his name. So this architecture which we see does not really resemble the Mughal architecture. It is because it was built up in this way by the British president David Auchinleck, who was the first British president coming to Delhi. And if you go to that side of this building, you will be able to see the remains of Mughal architecture. Not very prominent, but yes, we can make a sense of it. The library, Dara Shikoh Library, on which the British resident David Auchinleck built his residence. And we can see that it is way below the ground level, and the bricks which have been used here are the Lakhari bricks, which we also saw in the Kashmiri Gate area, the Kashmiri Gate itself. And there are many guesses as to what could these places have been. So, some people say it could have been for horses. Some people say it could have been used as a shelter house, because for the travelers who were coming to the library. Right, there was someone who was guessing that it could have been a canal also here. So I don't really know, and no one has really specifically said what could these have been, because these are just a ruin. the complete environment seems to be in complete chaos and confusion. And more than information, there are rumors all over. And then comes the significance of the telegraph office, which could have been here or very, very near to us somewhere. Especially the significance is of the two signalers who stayed on duty and they kept on signaling the Ambala government about the happenings of the Delhi city, so that the similar situation could not erupt in Punjab. And it was in the memory of the bravery of the two signalers and of the telegraph office that the telegraph office memorial was erected by the British here. All type of weapons, British weapons and artillery, but before it could fall in the hands of Indian soldiers, the British threw it away. And one of the reasons for the suppression of the 1857 mutiny was that the Indian rebels did not have good weaponry. So maybe then its significance could be understood from this fact. And the British have. There is an inscription which British have put in the memory of the bravery of these British officials who had known and sacrificed their lives. And if we move to the right side of the magazine, we would find another inscription which is put up by the Indian government. And if we will move, we will be able to get why these two inscriptions and what was the psychology or what was going behind the mind of Indian government and the British government when they put it up. They're trying to clarify, and the upper one is by the British and for the British. They're trying to clear that these are not the rebels, they're the freedom fighters. So here we come to the end of our walk, and thanks for being such a lovely crowd. I really enjoyed with you.